I'll go to the next slide, Hamish. Thanks. So for a basic overview of the course structure, we are a 4-year postgraduate program. To enter into the degree, the prerequisites are that you do a few subjects, 2 biological-based subjects in second year of an undergraduate science or biomedicine degree. If you could do that with a liberal arts degree, that's usually acceptable too. So the prerequisites are fairly simple. We actually don't have prerequisites for mathematics or physics or anything like that. My job as the teacher of the optics component of the course is to make that information available to people who don't necessarily have a strong background in mathematics and physics. And I think that we're really successful in doing that. So biology subjects at second year undergraduate level is the prerequisite. And once you're here, you do a 4-year program with us. We start in the first year with 2 subjects. The first subject is the 75% of the year is made up of integrated ophthalmic sciences. It's basic training in the fundamental knowledge that you need for understanding how the human visual system is built and how vision relies on basic science of optics, the basic biological sciences, and also a thing we call visual function, how we actually generate visual perception. So these are the very fundamental scientific background upon which all of your knowledge about that's needed to do optometry is based. The basic understanding of how we see. That's what we're doing in most of the first year. That doesn't mean that the first year is just academic. Alongside that integrated ophthalmic sciences subject, we've also got a subject called preclinical optometry, and that's where you begin to get clinical training. And in particular, you start to learn the clinical techniques that are used in a standard optometry consultation. You get to buy your own equipment, specialist equipment to practice on each other. And at home, your family, your dog or cat or anything that's going to sit still long enough for you to practice on, that's your job in first year and in preclinical optometry, to begin to learn the techniques of how to examine an eye. And then in the second year, we've got, again, 2 subjects. They're both year-long subjects. There's a large subject called applied clinical training. And that subject has streams that cover basic scientific concepts that underpin clinical experiences such as immunology and microbiology, pharmacology. It also starts to cover clinical content like anterior eye disease, neurological disorders of vision, pediatric optometry, binocular vision disorders, contact lenses, and dispensing. So you get to start thinking about some core clinical topics. And we actually start to introduce you to real patients halfway through the second year so that you get a feel for real practice very early on in the course. And alongside that, we've got a research subject. Now, most of the teachers in the optometry program are themselves internationally renowned researchers. I've got a research laboratory. I do a thing called adaptive optics imaging the retina, where the front of the eye, we correct all the aberrations and defections of the eye and use the front of the eye as basically a microscope objective to see cellular level things inside living human eyes. And that allows us to understand basic physiological processes in the retina, but also what goes wrong in diseases. So that's my research shtick. And we've got other people in the department who are experts in immunology in the front of the eye. There are people who are doing animal research using animals like rats and mice as disease models. All the people who teach you have got active research programs. And in second year, this research subject allows you to embed yourself into some of those research, or pretty much all of those, any of those research programs, and you get to design, conduct, and collect data and analyze that data for yourself in a group work. In fact, many of those projects go on to lead to publication. So while you're studying, you can actually contribute to the advancement of the profession, which we think is really cool. So that's second year. And in third year, we've got a single year-long subject called clinical optometry practice. And in that subject, you learn more advanced clinical sciences and you get to apply that knowledge and skills in real clinical situations where you begin to see your own patients under the supervision of clinical teaching instructors. And by the time you get to final year, there's this one large subject called the optometry internship year, where you are indeed an intern embedded into clinics all through the year, being almost entirely seeing patients. There's a few what we call grand rounds where you get together and discuss cases, but most of the final year is all about thinking of going to places and learning and experiencing what it's like to be an optometrist of various different flavors. So that's the 4-year course in a nutshell. Equipment. So clinical studies do commence in first year. So you need to purchase the required equipment in first year, an ophthalmoscope, a device to look inside the eye, diagnostic lenses, etc. I'd say this because this does cost a couple $1,000s, maybe $4,000 if you buy the top of the range equipment. We always encourage our students to buy the best equipment they possibly can, look after it, and it'll last you a lifetime. If you look after your equipment will certainly look after you. But it's fair that we let people know that up front because it is an additional cost. And there's a note here about clinical placements. There's a number of requirements that must be met in order to you to be permitted to go into a clinical placement. So we do have some requirements for you to be immunized against all sorts of diseases, and you get a police check, or working with children check. We're going to make sure that the community into which we're allowing you to go considers you to be safe and not a danger to yourself or others. So that's something that we should just say up front as well.